All right. Well, good morning. And hello, and how do you do? Well, I know you've been waiting for this tape, and here it is. It's taken me a while to get to them. I've been very, very busy on the road a lot. And as you know, they eventually do get there. So I really appreciate you all being as patient as you have been. Thank you very, very much. Um, let's see. Today we're going to talk about a couple things, perhaps, or not. We're going to start off with joy. I talk a lot about joy, and I have fun with joy. And I've begun to notice that sometimes we're not really sure what joy is. And so I thought I'd kind of cover some of it today. We're high atop Mount Shasta. It's a little brisk. It's about 30. It's October. Sorry it took me so long to make the August tape, but you know, what can I say? So here it is. Joy. It's sort of a wonderful thing, and it brings things into our system that we don't normally bring in. When I started talking about joy and explaining that joy was one of those things that you received by being in a divine state, I noticed that after a while, a lot of people could understand what a divine state was, but weren't necessarily sure on what joy was, and thought that joy was something that was outside of themselves. That joy was only something that came after you were having fun. That joy was something that came if you went out to a certain place for a party. Or joy was something that came outside of you by going to a really good movie. Or joy was something that you got by buying a house or a car. And what I've begun to discover is this isn't really joy. This is some other form. This is like something external that we are trying to acquire from outside of ourselves and then pretend that it's joy. In other words, we'll go to a movie and we'll think we're in joy because we had a good time. Or we'll go to a certain bar or have a certain party because that was supposed to be joy. And so, you know, we went with that. Or we had friends over our house. We were having a little get-together and we thought that that should be joy. What those things are that we were having were entertainment. They brought us happiness in the moment. They weren't necessarily joy. I have found that we as a group of people are looking outside of ourselves for something that can only be inside of us. We are looking for an external stimulus to stimulate something that is inside of us, figuring that we can take something that is physical and stimulate something that is not physical. Most of us believe that by having a good time is joy, or having happiness is joy. And we get all sorts of external things to bring us that happiness, therefore we're in joy. This is not necessarily the truth for the joy that we are wishing to get. You see, I've observed that we as people have gone outside of ourselves since our very beginning of coming out of the womb to search for material. We looked to our parents and they showed us how to talk and to walk. We looked to our parents and they showed us what emotions were before we even started to understand what they were. We were capable of perceiving from our parents hate and anger and love and excitement. We observed them, our parents, for all of the things that we needed to do on the physical plane. That sounded kind of stuttered. My finger got caught on the pause button. So we have looked our whole life for outside. From the very beginning, we have looked outside. We have looked to our parents, we have looked to our friends, we have looked to our neighbors, we have looked to adult parental approval people, we have looked for our heroes. We have continuously looked outside. As we come to our divinity, we begin to continue once again to look outside, because that was based on the structure that our physicalness had founded. Our physicalness said, go outside, look for everything, the answers are all there. Now we are starting to look for divine answers and divine insights. We are looking to God. We have started to look outside of ourselves once again, because this is where we found everything. This is where those things that we were looking for, we found. Like when we needed a language, we found it outside of ourselves. When we needed how to learn how to walk, we found that outside of ourselves. Now we're looking for God outside of ourselves. As we look, we find great teachers. We find teachers who are doing different paths. They have different techniques. They have different ideas. They have different research projects. And we are continuously looking outside of ourselves for these people to enlighten us. When they enlighten us, you'll notice that the enlightenment comes from inside of ourselves. There's something inside of ourselves that goes, aha, now I know what they're talking about. Now I see what they're trying to say. But we had to go within to actually comprehend what these external people, like myself and the teachers, are telling you. We listen to what these teachers tell us, and then what we've discovered is that if they tell us something that actually works, it feels right to us, there's something inside of us, it seems correct. So if they tell us something that works, we become enlightened within. Now, as we become enlightened within, we need to recognize this, because what you have observed is that you went in for an answer. You were excited inside by something that you heard outside of yourself. You heard something external, brought it inside, and then felt good about something. From this explanation, we are beginning to notice that instead of finding everything outside of ourselves, we're now looking inside of ourselves. We are finding that there is a part of us, this God part, this consciousness part, that is sharing with us some sort of inner awareness or inner knowing. By discovering this inner knowing, we are beginning to notice that we no longer have to go outside of ourselves to find the answer. We are no longer having to go outside of ourselves to find a teacher. The things that we find outside of ourselves are slowly beginning to register and inspire things that are inside of ourselves. And so for the first time, we're finding internal peace, internal gratification, internal satisfaction. We don't have to go outside of ourselves and get a pump to get back, something inside. Inspiration is that thing that gets us inspired inside. As we become inspired inside, you will notice that that is where joy comes from. See, the inspiration from within inside brings us joy from something within us. We didn't have to go somewhere or do something or be somebody for us to get excited. Happiness and things of that nature, pumps, those are the things, excitement, those are the things that we get outside of ourselves. And then we'll notice that if it inspires something inside of us, we start to go into joy. It wasn't anything external that brought us to the joy. The external things are the things that inspire our inner self. When our inner self gets clear on something, we begin to experience a joy. Joy, therefore, is something that comes from us internally. It is not something that we have to perform externally to get inside. You see, joy is a thing that comes from God. And so, like, as we become divinely inspired, we think we should have joy. Well, if you are divinely inspired, then you will find that the joy comes from within. If you believe you are divinely inspired, but are finding that you have to go out and get a pump from a person, place, or thing, or or you have to get some sort of drama, or you have to go to a specific place or do a specific thing to become happy, and then say that that's joy, you may find that your brain is telling you that it's God and that by being happy you're in joy. And if that's the case, none of it is true. Joy is an eternal, internal essence. Summer camp was a really great example. Let me try to give you all the different examples that I could come up with. We talked about a lot of joy in summer camp, and as we did certain bats, or we did fire walks, or we did rafting, or we did climbing up to Mount Shasta, or we climbed the crags, or we went hiking in the woods, all of those different things that we did brought excitement within the physical plane, because the physical unit was participating in something where it thought that it should be having fun. And somewhere it thought that it would be having fun. It would also be having joy if it was in a divine state. As we had the different events, we would look to the event, the hot tubs and the Indian sweats. We would look for those things to bring us excitement and happiness, and they would. But we began to notice that the excitement and the happiness was something that was just being inspired by a physical event in that moment. We also noticed that there was somewhat of a pump. There was somewhat of an exaggeration of the physical plane in order to have this happiness. As we began to observe that, we also began to look to see, well, where is the joy within all of this happiness? And the joy came from the peace that your spirit was having inside of itself. There was one event that we had. It was rafting, where we rafted a river for the day, and we had talked about things called the pump and how we get excitement out of the drama. And sometimes we think that that happiness and that excitement is divine joy, and it's not. It is physical pleasure enjoyed by a physical reaction that brought us happiness. It is all based on a physical experience. Joy is totally built on a divine experience. It comes when there is peace inside of the physical structure. And the physical structure realizes that it has to do absolutely nothing. The physical structure has to do absolutely nothing at all, and it can be in joy. Sometimes we think that the physical structure has to be doing something to give us happiness and pleasure. That is true. But the physical structure doesn't have to be doing anything to bring us joy. See, when we got in the boats, and we had like 30 or 40 kayaks and big boats, and we were like all doing what we wanted to do. See, on the river, after a while, you paddle and look at beautiful things. It's sort of like the happiness and the pump and the rush of the drama of the next bend sort of mellows out. And all of a sudden, you're just sort of hanging out there, and you're noticing that just the sun putting warmth on your body creates joy. It's something physical, but it's also something that you can't really see. You can't see the light coming into your body, so it becomes more of a non-physical thing. You begin to watch the water, and you begin to watch the way it dances, and it spins, and it spirals, and it jumps, and all of a sudden, those little motions that don't really have a whole lot to do with your happiness, or paddling through a rapid, or getting the joy of shooting the rapids. You just notice that you were having joy while you were sitting there. You could feel God in your heart, and you watched the little rainbows burst off the water, and you watched the sun in the sky, and you just sort of watched whatever happened to be going by your eye, and you found pure pleasure. You began to realize that as you saw all of nature and all of its beauty, and sort of weren't physically trying to do anything, you began to notice a peace and a joy just started coming over the essence. You found beauty in everything. You found enjoyment in everything. You found happiness in everything, and discovered you didn't have to do anything to have the happiness. You didn't have to do anything to have the joy. All you had to do was be in present time, and all things just made themselves known to you. And you enjoyed, You had peace. You didn't have to pump anything physical because you weren't doing anything physical per se to pump. You might have been paddling the boat a little bit, but that wasn't a dramatic pump or drama or, the things that we do externally to think we need that burst of happiness. Everything that we do, if we do it from the love of God, brings joy into our hearts. Everything that we do that we try to get an external pump out of brings happiness or acceleration or excitement in one way or another. But it doesn't really truly bring us that peace and joy that we are looking for. That peace and joy that we are looking for is within. It is within us. It is not the external part of us doing things to bring joy into us. Joy comes from a peace of knowing that everything is all right in that moment in time, and you don't really have to do anything to experience the joy. The present moment is really what enhances joy and peace. Present moment accelerates that knowingness that is within us. It is that acceleration of knowing that we don't have to do anything to be in this state. It is the joy that knowing just as we commune with ourselves and our totality and our God, things happen automatically and just are very uplifting. It is just so much fun to stay in present moment and have the experience of joy and peace. And then on the physical plane, if you would like to have the happiness or the laughter or all of the things that physically go with that, then share the joy on the physical plane, and people will feel your joy. Not a good joke to make them laugh, or not a quick anecdote to say something quick and spiffy and fancy just so that they laugh in that moment. But the joy that you bring into the moment and every moment of just your essence of being there is so godlike and so divine that you will bring a smile of joy to other people. Now remember, happiness and excitement is not joy and peace. Happiness and excitement are something that you have to physically pump within moments. Happiness is like the opposite of sadness. See, those things are in duality. If you're having one, you would probably have the other, perhaps just to see what's going on. Because if you enjoy the pump of laughing hard, you will have also the other side of the coin, which is the pump of perhaps not laughing so hard. Joy, however, and peace, however, are not in duality. Remember, when you have peace and joy, you'll notice that you get essences or feelings of divinity that rush through your body that do not have anything to do with the physical plane. Knowingness is also a state of joy, because within that knowingness, there's that security of being at one with all things, and joy and peace are within that pleasure. They are within that state of knowing. Nobody gives you joy, nobody gives you peace, and it is an experience that you have in present time. Happiness and excitement is something that you had to work for, and then pumped the happiness and the joy, because, and we'll say joy because excitement is better. Happiness and excitement, because these are physical things that you physically worked with to pump yourself up. Sometimes I slip and I want to say the word joy, on the physical plane, and I kind of catch myself because it's not a physical state of being. I guess that's what I wanted to say in retrospect. And then I wanted to just kind of like tune to you and say, I love you. Totally out of context, but I love you. I love you because you're discovering your divinity. You're discovering your God. I love you because I can feel you as you grow. I love you because I can feel that you're really caring about yourself. Sure, we all forget from time to time, but I love you because you love that part of yourself that is special within. I feel joy within my heart as I say and share these things with you, because there's a sense of knowing when I say these things that you know you really are that God essence, and you really do put that effort out, and you really are that being. And sometimes we get so happy and excited, we think that that's joy, and then we notice that we get so pumped up sometimes over things that a day later or so, you know, you're experiencing the downside, and we say, well, how can I be so darn happy one day and so down the next? How can I have this divine experience? And this is one that I've noticed. Sometimes we'll slip into a divine experience. And during that divine experience, what you will know is because the physicalness wants to partake so badly, it jumps in with tons of excitements and tons of happiness. And when you start pumping those things, and you all know what I mean by pump, that's getting the extra little physical something out of it. When we pump this happiness, or we pump this divine experience, what you'll notice is a day or so later, you have like a downside. And you go like, well, where did this downside come from? Like, I don't understand it. I was just in divinity a couple days ago. I was just in total peace and joy a couple minutes ago. Like, what happened? Well, what I'd like to point out is that during those inspired states, or during that divine interlude, when you are truly in the joy and peace, you also got into the drama. And because things felt so good and you wanted to hold on to them because you believed that if you didn't pump them, it wouldn't hold on, we physically pumped them with happiness. We physically pumped them with excitement. We physically pumped ourselves up like going, yeah, that's it. Yes, this is phenomenal. Yes, I worked hard for this. Yes, I deserve this. As soon as you get into that phase, for every action, there is a like and equal reaction. See, we started out with joy and we started out with peace. And then the physical plane, because it is so used to getting everything out of the physical plane in terms of drama or a pump or that little extra, yeah, it's that pump on the extra clarity or the extra negativity that really nails duality down. Where the day after, a couple days after, yes, for that high that was originally peace and joy, that you pumped into happiness and pleasure and excitement so that the physical unit could partake in the divine experience. The physical partaking also is in duality, which means for that absolute pump that you took at a high, you're going to have to take that absolute pump at a low. Because it's what you asked for. You asked for the extra excitement. You asked for the extra happiness. You asked by pumping the drama. When you are in peace and joy, and the physical unit wants to start partaking in it, why? Aren't you clear enough and happy enough right now? Aren't you clear enough in joy and peace to not have to allow the physical unit to go into the happiness and the excitement just so that it can feel that it's participating, because that is a habit that you used to do and that you used to feed on continuously. Because, hey, when things are going good, we pump it because we miss it. And it's not always the greatest time in our life 24 hours a day. So sometimes when that joy and peace comes up, we pump it because we don't know what else to do, and we want to give that physical self as much of a pump as possible. Because that's the way it's done it since you were born. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's just who we are and the way we do things. We get so excited on wanting to feed the physical plane that when the divine plane gets fed, there's a part of the physical plane, because it's not in the drama and it's such in a peace and tranquil state of joy, that it feels, well, maybe I should pump this also just to see what this is like on the physical plane. Because the physical plane got it there, and so maybe it should enjoy it. Well, if you can just sit in the peace and the bliss of joy, you'll discover that it's more than anything the physical unit could pump up. You'll also begin to understand that the joy will stay with you a whole lot longer. than it would have if you pumped it up. Because as soon as you start pumping it up, that's duality. And for the length of time that you pump it, that's the length of time that you will probably spend on the, let's say the other side of the coin, checking out how that works. The pump has to be experienced in duality. Whether it was plus or minus that you were pumping, it will show you the other side so that you can clearly see how you were pumping. So that when you are in joy and peace again, you won't have to shift into the physical plane and go, oh wow, I need to complete this. And so you feel sometimes, wow, I need this physical pump to really complete and hold on to this. Trust the joy and trust the peace. And you'll discover that you can hold on to it a lot longer than going into happiness and excitement. Our personality has a fear of losing that state of clarity that we have. You don't want to lose that state of clarity. You do want to stay with it because it's who you are. You don't have to rush into what you thought was present time to get the rush. Stay in the joy. Stay within the peace. Begin to let that physical unit experience it without having to get the hype. Look at the physical plane and say, hey, I see you just want to really jump out on the hype and really go for it. What I would like you to do is to keep enjoying the peace. What I would like you to do is keep enjoying the joy. All right, now let's just kind of shoot over to the other side and talk a little more on this. Thank you.